This is Road to the Golden Door, where we unpack the proven success formula straight from the minds of Golden Door winners, uncovering the motivation, methods, and the mindset it takes to become an elite performer in door-to-door sales and in life. This is Road to the Golden Door. Now, here's your host, Mikey Lucas.
All right, welcome back. Road to the Golden Door. We have an absolute legend on the show today. So let me introduce Tyler Bastian, everybody. Tyler has literally knocked for 24 years. That is longer than most of you guys have been alive. 24 years professionally, 20 years. So meaning full time, did 20 years of door-to-door sales. The 4 years prior to that, his dad would kick him out of the car, out of the truck, and tell him to go knock doors. I believe he was doing windows.
Washing windows, man, when I was 13.
And you hit your from my first time. Okay, there was this big. I guess we'll get into it, but Tyler, you installed just under 2 megawatts in the year that you were at Source, a year and a quarter or so. You're at Solar City. You came in and everybody was like, "Oh, Tyler!" Like the sea parted when like you walked in the door at the Fort Worth office. And I'm like, I don't really care who this Tyler guy is. I'm better than him. I wasn't, but I was trying to be better than you. And anyways, that was my first time meeting you in the C part. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll get out of the way. This Tyler guy's here. You drove a Tesla. It was the coolest thing ever. All I heard was the roads in Dallas. You had, I think, maybe blown like 3 or 4 tires in the first month you were there. Does that sound familiar?
I lost you for just a second, Mikey, and I missed the question. In Dallas.
You're good.
Say it again.
So, you're good. So the Tesla that you drove, I heard that there was some issues with flat tires.
Yeah, I moved from Utah down to Dallas, and I was so stoked that there was no state sales tax, and I quickly realized how much of that tax money goes to roads when I was driving on 22-inch wheels, and immediately cost me like $3,000 in my first 2 months in Dallas. In potholes driving to the freaking warehouse because of how bad the roads were. It's a rude awakening.
Yep.
I'm more grateful for state tax and nice roads than I've ever been. So,
ain't that right?
Learn.
Well, Tyler Bastian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on, Mikey, for real, man. Respect a lot about what you've done. Love seeing the people you brought on this, and love seeing you spread the goodness and tips from, those who have really mastered their craft. So happy to be here, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to this, man. I just flew in from New York City and was going through and was just trying to figure out and think back of stories, and that was the story. You literally the hallways parted when you walked in the door. It was kind of interesting. So I was like, I don't know who this guy is. The Bastian.
I don't know how to really take that one, but as a compliment in some way, and I don't know, highly debatable in others.
Oh no, everybody loved you there, dude. It was outstanding. And then I'm now good friends with Jordan and Jake. I've had Jordan on the show too. So I worked for your brother Cody, and I worked under his office. So I knew a lot about the Bastian. So to be able to see you as CEO of Vital now, seeing what you guys are doing, it's just it's a really awesome. It's going to be a really good interview, so I'm really excited for it. So, guys, if you are driving, definitely make sure you have the ability to take notes, voice memo yourself, pause, repeat. This is going to be a great show. So, Tyler, for everybody that doesn't know Tyler Bastian, who is Tyler Bastian?
Oh, that's a loaded question, man. We talking work? We talking personal? Where we going with that one, Mikey?
We can. It's basically where I get all my questions from. So I think what
I'm learning over the years is that's probably the best question. And I think that question evolves, If you asked who I was 5 years ago, it'd be a completely different human than I am today.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing I come to realize is as you get a little bit older, got a lot more hindsight, a lot more experiences to lean on. And I think that starts to evolve you as a person, and that answer changes. Or it should change, if you're really becoming more self-aware, you're recognizing where you've made mistakes and where decisions that have helped you progress, then you're going to continue making those decisions. You're also going to learn from your mistakes and failures. And hopefully that means you're changing, you're adapting, and becoming a different human. So I'm definitely a different person than I used to be. So who am I? I don't know. That's a tough one, but that's what comes to my mind is ever changing.
Let's start the last year then. So what are you doing now?
Okay.
So for everyone that doesn't know who you are, let's just start there because I don't want to go back 24 years, bro. We started at 2015. Let's catch up.
A lot of door-to-door sales. Obviously, that's in my blood. It's been going on since I was a teenager and jumped into the alarm game very early at 20 years old. It clicked for me pretty quickly. Saw a lot of success. Did that for 15 years. Was then transitioned into the solar game. That's where we met late 2015, 2016 really. Solar City down in Dallas, and been in the solar industry for the past 7 years. Last year has been heavy change, man. Heavy change. I've really had to level up in a lot of ways, and it's been life-altering change. I'd probably say this is the most exciting, difficult, stressful, uncomfortable, growth-based, fun year, all wrapped into one that I've ever had in my entire life. For reals. It's been about 12 months ago that my partners and I and some of our key sales leaders, split off for the previous business we were at. Been a great opportunity and experience there. But it was time to do our own thing. So we broke off. We started Vital about 12 months ago. At the time, we had about a head count of 200. We partnered with Freedom Forever at the time, which was a large decision, trying to figure out kind of what our next move was and really, what direction we were going to take the business, and that's played a really key piece to it. So about 12 months ago, split off, started that partnership, and over the past 12 months, we've really been able to kind of get our feet under us, establish a really good foundation of who we believe we are, the vision and the direction we have, both with our own business and our own people, and also together collectively with our partner Freedom. And over the past 12 months, we've over doubled in headcount, doubled in sales, and seen a lot of growth. So it's been a lot of excitement and growth in that. But as you transition out of being a salesperson into higher level leadership roles, up into managing teams, to organizations, to then sitting in the seat I'm at today, which I wouldn't have planned on being here a couple of years back. There's a lot of growth that comes from that, right? A lot of new stressors that you previously didn't see, that you have to learn from, and that you've really got to adapt and grow into that role. So it's been fun. It's been exciting. It's been stressful. And on the personal side, I've had a lot of massive change in the past 12 months too. At the exact same time we started the business, I went through a separation. So having to learn a totally different lifestyle with after a 20-year relationship, the detachment that comes from that, the learnings and the maturity level that comes from that, learning how to manage kids' schedules. I've definitely, grown a deep appreciation for households that are managing different schedules with kids. A lot of empathy for those who have gone through divorce. And so being able to go through that all the exact same year, started a business, it's been a heavy year, Mikey. So when you ask who am I, I'm like, I'm figuring that out, man. I'm figuring that out, but I like the path I'm on, and I feel like I've made decisions to follow my intuition and decisions that I feel like I'm heading exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I feel really good about life, but been a lot to handle and deal with this year. So I'm growing, man.
Thank you for sharing that, Tyler. Let me ask you a question then. You said I'm figuring it out. I guess if you would have looked at where you're at now 5 years ago, and I'm not saying the family stuff, I'm not saying the money stuff, I'm just saying in general, you personally, would you have guessed that you would be able to handle what you are going through right now 5 years ago?
We had, it's interesting the timing of the question with that. So we had a staff meeting this morning with our whole team. Every Monday we hold those, and, we all get together and we take turns, sharing a message, from staff member up to executive level. And today was my message to share. And it literally, it touches base on exactly that, right? And what I shared was, I asked everybody to kind of, share a time in their life where it was like the most highest level of stress they'd ever felt for, from different angles, and a place where they felt pretty overwhelmed. Because I think in ever since 2020, I don't know what it is, man. It's not just my life, but I feel like a lot of people have been shaken up. I feel like they've had a lot of beliefs, that have been held in their lives that were probably questioned or brought to surface in different ways. Just about everything, right? And I feel like a lot of people are going through some things that are a little bit different the past few years. And so I asked everybody to think of a time they were just overly stressed, and it brought up some times for me earlier. I threw back about 10 years to go to 2013. And at that point in time, I had been running my own security company for about 3.5 years. And I was actually shutting it down, transitioning back to Vivint. I was also building a home, had, a bunch of small kids, was living in an apartment in these transition times. I remember feeling like highly overwhelmed and stressed out, right? Just to my max at the time. Like I felt it was as much as I could possibly handle and deal with. And I fast forward 10 years today, and it seems like child's play. I think about the things that would have overwhelmed me then compared to what I'm dealing with now and how I've been able to have to learn and grow. And I think I've just got to a point where it's like everybody wants to grow, progress, and get from here to here. And they think that they can get there if this stress goes away. Whatever I'm dealing with today, if I could just get through that, everything would be easier, and then I'd be able to go from here to here, right? And I think it's a big misconception that people have, and unfortunately, we all try to wish our stressors away so that we can get to here one day when we don't have any more. And if the place you're trying to get to is a higher level than you're at today, sorry to burst anybody's bubble, but the stressors get larger. If you're in a financially stressful position at this state, then you might be dealing with hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of stress that you're thinking about, right? Well, up here at this state, that's not the case anymore, right? You're dealing with millions and millions of dollars once you arrive up to this state that you thought you wanted to be at, and the stress levels of millions of dollars are a whole lot different than down here, right? And so I think really just leveling up is learning that you can handle it. It's going to be okay, and it's for your benefit. And if you can learn to handle it now instead of wishing it away, then you're going to learn to operate at a level that those who have arrived up here have learned to operate at. They didn't get rid of all their stressors. They didn't finally make all the right decisions to not have any. They figured out how to manage them and how to deal with them at a higher level. And every time that they faced it and leaned into their challenges, their trials, their uncomfort, then it leveled them up further, and it allowed them to be able to deal with the next ones that are going to come. They don't stop coming, As you get older, as you move up, they don't stop. They just come in different waves from different places. And I think your previous experience and the way you've learned to manage those prepare you for the next level. And it's not about getting rid of them. So, anyways, I don't know if I got a little off on a tangent, but when you ask about that, it's like that's what we talked about today. It was just all about like, hey, face what you're dealing with right now, accept it, like embrace it instead of fighting against it and kicking against it. The longer you kick, the longer you'll be stuck. The longer it'll take for you to feel like, oh, you finally got rid of this piece. It's just not how it works.
Okay, Tyler. Why do you think that we think the next our generation, 20, 30-year-olds, why do you think that where did that idea come that later on in life would just get easier? Where did that come from?
I don't know if it came from I don't know if it came from anywhere, and I don't even know if it's a generational thing, right? I think that's just something that happens as you grow, learn, and experience, like on your own path. Because I think back to a time like I can remember. I don't know why this popped into my head. I can remember being a kid in 5th grade on the playground at recess. And I remember playing basketball, but for some reason, I remember being in this moment where I was so stressed about grades. And I wasn't like a bad student, right? Like I remember homework was stressing me out, right? So it's like, and I remember as a kid feeling overwhelmed. So I think it's one of those things. It's like, as a kid, you don't know what's coming next. As an adult, you don't know what's coming next. You don't know what your next level is. And once you get there, the things that are going to be great and easy and beautiful, and the things that are going to come that you've never experienced before that are going to be really difficult. So I think it's just in our nature, right? Like it's in our nature to want difficult things to go away. because once they go away, then something's going to be easier. But it's always replaced with something different, and there's ebbs and flows. There's times where obviously you're going to have heightened amounts of stress and periods of time that you really have to get uncomfortable, which is where your largest periods of growth are going to come for, and prepare you for other really heavy, large periods. And hopefully there's some ebb and flow, and you get a little bit of a mental break in between those really massive moments in your life, which I happen to be going through this past year between, personal and professional, side of things. But I think that's just in our nature. I think it's in our nature to not want to have to be facing the hard thing in the moment. So I wouldn't even make it generational. I think our parents probably felt that way. I think we felt that way. And I think that's just in our nature.
Got it. Yeah. I just wanted to know where you stood on that. I've heard you said a few times, like, it's hard because I know your story. For the listeners that don't know who you are, I want you to understand something really quickly. Tyler has gone through probably more in the last 20 years, knocking on doors than I think. Literally. Think about if you're a 2-year, 3-year rep, even if you're a Golden Door guy, Tyler's done that for 20 years and has gone through these hires, fires, stressors, getting copped out by the, police and whatever. And it's like, dude, Tyler's done this year after year after year after year, and yet he's still standing. So, yeah, dude, I really like that you said that. I was telling you off the camera there that I just saw Jordan Peterson in Seattle. I got to do a VIP event with him, and somebody asked him a question in the VIP, and they're like, "Hey, like, how do you deal with the snakes?" Because he's on his biblical tour right now, and he used the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, and how like God made the garden, and it was closed off, and it was perfect, and there's always snakes that come in, like no matter what, you can't keep the snakes out, for instance. And he was talking about like, how do you what like helicopter parents try to do is they try to like, get their kids away from the bad and, get them off of TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and everything's bad and homeschool and oh my God. And then it's not really preparing them for what reality is. And what he basically said was, look, you don't want to eliminate the snakes in life. You simply want to learn how to deal with them and learn what they are.
Yep.
Prepare for them instead of getting blindsided by them, in other words. And I think you've done that super well. And I want to get more into that later on in the show. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
You mentioned these seasons of life. So let me bring you back to this year, 2015, 2016. When you got to Solar City, you got to Dallas, I was there, and I saw you come in. You hit, I think it was 23 of deals in your first like couple weeks there. It was more than anybody had ever sold there. And then all of a sudden, everyone's hitting over 20 deals. I don't know if you know that or not. Do you remember that?
Yeah. No, I recall. It raised the bar a little bit.
Yeah. So you hit 23 deals. I think you said 18 of those actually installed. I mean, that was wild. And then you hit just under 2 megawatts within the next basically year. So that was your Golden Door year, the big Golden Door year. And you came off of alarm sales into solar. I want to bring you back to that year. Who was Tyler Bastian, and where was your mindset at then? What was going on in your head then, bro?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, man. A couple things. I'd been doing alarms now that year for over 10 years. I had, and this gets more into kind of those seasons of lifetimes, right? But to throw back to my rookie year, professionally door-to-door selling, outside of like, hey, I did window washing, which legitimately was my job all grown up. I would go knock doors to wash windows, but I didn't view it as sales, and I didn't have persuasion techniques. I just learned some basic principles that were really important that would impact me here, which we can get into later. But my very first year selling, I went out and was having a really, really good rookie year and kind of got rocked really hard. And in July, coming up on the third week of July, my first year selling in '06, I lost my brother and sister in a car accident. And that plays into a lot of who I became over the next 15 years up until today. But honestly, until recently, in the past few years, I didn't realize the impact it had. I didn't realize truly how it affected me. So I've had to do a lot of uncovering then. But really, the bottom line is it put me into a just fight or flight mode, right? And everything that I dealt with was all dealt with through work, right? So I became very robotic and zombie-ish on the doors in a good way for work. I learned how to compartmentalize all my emotions and go get my feel goods all from producing, and I could control everything there. So that's one thing I learned. I learned really early on in door to door is rather than saying I'm stressed, I have a lot going on, and so this speaks to really like just mindset of top 1%, because I think anybody who's arrived to that location had to have adopted this mentality in some way. Their stresses aren't gone. Whatever you think you have going on in life, which is preventing you from being into the top 1%, or so you think, I promise they have it too, or something that's just as heavy as yours to them, right? And if you can learn to use door to door or direct sales, whatever form you're in, as an out from that, if you can compartmentalize while you're there, it's really a great tool, because you get to control everything there, right? So to me, it was my control. Anyways, I got so focused on that, though. You'll learn later from takeaway standpoint, it prevented me from being a good leader. It prevented me from really seeing outside myself often. Like I compartmentalized too much, and it held me back in a lot of ways. So I got stuck, and I didn't know this yet. I hadn't become self-aware of what had really happened to me and how it was preventing me from growing into a better leader and building way more, from an organizational standpoint than I ever had. I was really stuck in my own little world. And so I think 2015 was me. It was the first time I was trying to figure out that something was up with me and I didn't know what it was. So 2015 was actually my best year I ever had alarms. A lot of people switch industries or companies when they're like on a low and they're struggling and they're in a place where it's like, well, maybe if I switch over here, it'll get better, right? And that's never the case. It's always here, whether you're performing well as a business or not. So I never wanted to be that guy, but I knew something just had to give. I was getting to a point where I didn't know why, but I felt like I was losing my personality. It was just too much of the same thing over and over and over, and selling 400 accounts takes it out of you. You have to be one place all the time. So what was going through my mind is I needed change, and at least changing industries was enough. Plus solar was getting hot. I didn't want to miss the boat, so I wanted change. And when I entered Solar City, I had only worked in one industry the whole time. So there was that question mark, that seed of doubt started to come in. Like, was it just a fluke? Am I just good at alarms? Am I, what's the deal? So when I went over there, I remember this intense pressure, of I've built this name up for myself. I was coming off my year at Vivint. I'd been the top rep that year. And it's like, there's a lot of weight that gets carried with that. And what you did in the past no longer matters. So if you're going to go somewhere new, a new business, new industry, new everything, and to your point, my brother was already there. My family members were there. And my cousin, I think, was the top installer at the country at the time. My brother was running really good organizations. So I felt like I had something to prove from my name standpoint, from my reputation, what I built up. But I think more than anything, I had something to prove to myself that was like, no, it wasn't just here. I can go anywhere and do it if I put my head to it. And so the first 3 weeks I showed up like, I had something to prove. I had a reputation I wanted to uphold to myself and to everybody else. And, if you do want to grow into something more than just really a high level personal, salesperson, you've got to do something impressive that draws attention in order to be able to recruit. You at least need something that people want to follow you for. So in my mind, at least being able to do the core job you're going to ask people to do and do it really, really well at a level that they want to follow, that's the first step to being able to recruit and build larger organizations, is at least do something impressive that people are going to look towards and want to follow and want to learn from. So that's kind of all the things in my head, long-winded question to what was going on in my head at that time. But I needed change. I needed to mix it up. So
Yeah. No, I got you on that. Yeah, no, I appreciate you diving in that deep on that. I'm gonna go from the very, very last thing you said there. I thought that was really, really important. Regarding recruiting tips, do something that's impressive. Do something that's worth watching. I had a quote. I forget who wrote the quote. There, it was at my old house. It was above my desk. It said, "Do something worth writing, or write about something that's worth reading." And I forget who wrote that book, but I wrote that quote. But some president, I think, is what it was. But either way, it was same thing in recruiting. It's like, dude, like if you're not able to do the job at hand, I think we have so many of these issues within the if we can get to that point ever in this interview. How many issues we have with guys thinking that they can be number one because they want to have CEO at the club and tell people that they're, I'm a, like in Dallas, you remember this, and
sure.
sorry if anybody's listening to this and you are this, but I don't know if you remember that or not, but there was a really big like stigma of how I'm a commercial real estate agent. You remember that? It was like, if you're commercial real estate, you're like, ooh, cool. So, and I'm like, okay, sweet. Like, good for you. You're commercial real estate. Woo.
Right.
In New York, I'm technically a private equity fund manager now. So it's like, my partner and I were just at a show at a real estate event. And he was like, dude, you're in New York. You say private equity. When people say private equity, they go, oh, cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're in it. You're that guy right now, Mikey. You can do that. You can grab that title and you can parade it.
True, but to go back to that, it's because I did something that was worth watching. I did something that was impressive. I did it. And that's why I'm saying is what you just said, because I thought that that's what our listeners need to hear is that because I get questions like this all the time, either on DMs or on phones or on the coaching stuff. Like, how do I recruit? How do I recruit? One of you guys is asking me right now, how do I recruit? I want to start recruiting this. And I go, bro, go and throw in a metric F ton of deals and people will want to follow you and just document what you're doing. Like, you don't got to spend a bunch of money on recruiting, even though you should obviously be recruiting all the time. But like,
right.
People want to follow people that are winning, which is why, again, this show is to elevate guys like yourself, because you're somebody that has done something that's impressive, that's something that's worth watching and following, which is something that's be able to go up, all the way back down, all the way back up, all the way back down, and all the way back up again. And yet you're still, the level of resiliency that you have is second to none. I don't think anybody in this industry can compare to that, other than maybe Elon Musk himself. And yeah, I just compare Tyler Bastian and Elon Musk.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not go down that road.
I think it's close though. Okay, so you said something there too that really stood out to me, and I think that this is a major problem, Tyler. And again, this is not a sales podcast. This is a let's get real. Let's talk about life podcast. Let's talk about the struggles of the top 1%. You said you over compartmentalized, and yeah, you seemed very robotic when in those years that I saw you there, and in the Fort Worth, in the Texas office, right? You over compartmentalized. I think you did it on purpose, but how at what point did it become a problem? You said it got you stuck. It didn't help you learn in leadership, and how are you catching that now? Start there, and then what did that mean to you back then?
Yeah. No, we can dive deep on that. I think this is something, if I was listening to this, that I would hope to give somebody as a takeaway. Because I think when you said I think you did it on purpose. No, I didn't. I didn't do it on purpose, man. Look, when I got into door to door, I think I had a couple edges to begin with. One being I had learned at a young age to go knock doors, washing windows. And again, I didn't compare the two. I didn't even think like, oh, these are in the same genre. I've done this. I can go do that. I recognized that the thing washing windows taught me early was somebody always says yes. I wasn't a salesperson. I was a window washer. I thought of myself as a service person, right? So I just went around saying, I'm washing windows. Do you want your windows washed? I didn't have some sales pitch, right? I was a kid. But it taught me the most important lesson. If you have a service that people value and that they're buying out there, that if you go put work in and ask people, sooner or later they just say yes. You'll run into the people that want your product. If you have a good attitude and you just keep asking, and that to me is the first lesson, is like so unbelievable, unvaluable or invaluable, excuse me. And so I already kind of had an edge getting in. The other thing is I grew up as a tennis player, and that is a very, very advantageous thing for personal sales, not advantageous for team building, which is going to lead into this is, at a young age, I had some things go on in team sports that pissed me off, where I was a little bit of a victim, and, poor me, the coach didn't put me in. And so I definitely was frustrated. And that led me down the path of really loving tennis, because it was on me.
Yep.
A coach couldn't pull me out. If I lost because of me, but I played. I didn't lose because I was on the bench and somebody else played and they didn't put me in, or I was supposed to play this position and I wanted it, but I didn't get it because X, Y, and Z. So tennis just hit home for me. I wanted full control. I wanted the win, and I wanted the loss, and I was down to take it on my shoulders. And door to door is very similar to a tennis match. The momentum can change very quickly mentally. If you lose a point and you're thinking about the last point during the middle of the next point, you're losing all your strategy. You're losing all of your edge because you're no longer focused. And then you're going to lose that point. And then now you're going to be thinking about the last 2 points, and your emotions going to bubble up. And so at a young age, I had to very much learn how to control my mind from a point by point, very short term. Like I had to have amnesia and forget about what had just happened, and let it just roll off and, stay in the moment. And so those two things really gave me an edge. So starting off on door to door, I already had some edges, I think, mentally. And I was very competitive because of my sport. And I stopped playing tennis collegiately the exact same year I jumped into door to door. So I kind of just transferred all that competitive energy on the court, on the doors, in my own head. So all those things were benefits. But when I lost a brother and a sister, I don't think a lot of us have outlets. I think especially it's becoming more and more popular now, more accepted now, more openly talked about. But it's like, I should have been in therapy. I lost a brother, sister, and then 3 years later, I lost my father. So the 3-year period, lost 3 family members, and learning to emotionally deal with that without any outside help from, a therapy standpoint or really anything. When you don't have that, you just start to figure it out. Right. So I think I tucked all my emotions down. I didn't express them. I didn't talk to them about, often to people about what I really felt inside. And I think I just buried a lot of those things. And again, went so much deeper into a control my old world zone. I'm on the court. I'm on the doors. Like, this is my world. I have control. So the more you have control, the more you feel comfortable, the more you want to be in that place. And the more competitive you are, then you have to be in that place if you want to win, right? You've got to have an unbalanced life if you want to go get into the 1%. You're not going to have a balanced life. You're going to be unbalanced for a while if you want to do something that impressive. So I definitely fell into that imbalance, right? And door to door is a very systematic, if you're going to be good at it, right? You're not going to wander out into a neighborhood and figure out what to do every day. Like, exactly what you're doing. You're following a system and you're never breaking it. So I had my system, I got there, I followed it, I stayed in my mental zone. And, when you do that so long and you're so focused on managing your own emotions that you've buried for a long period of time, you also become a little bit more self-serving. You have to be, to an extent, right? Now, there's some people out there that have done a phenomenal job of personally getting into the top 1% while running great organizations. That I can think of that, so I don't want to make it sound like that's not possible. But what happened to me was I just became self-serving, and I had very, very little empathy for anybody who could not do the job the way I could. Not from a standpoint that I understood well, though, right? So looking back now, to me, what happened to me was I did learn how to deal with my own trauma, and I dealt with it in what I would say is a positive way, right? It's pretty positive to be able to not curl up on a ball, not go into depression, go succeed at a high level in work. So there's positives to it, but your strengths taken too far are also your weaknesses, right? So it was a strength of mine that I could compartmentalize. It was a strength of mine that I could bury a very traumatic experience and emotion and keep going. But when you bury it that deep and you go that far too, you can't. I went past a place of empathy, past a place of love, past a place of understanding. And that's survival mode. So I just went into survival mode. So I don't judge myself for this, but I got stuck for 15 years in survival mode. So what really held me back when I say I got stuck is as I'm starting to, because I'm competitive, I still want to grow. I still want to build teams. That's the next step is if you're the top rep now, you got to go be a top manager. And I struggled with that for a lot of years, man. I'd build teams and I'd lose them. I'd build teams and I'd lose them. And nobody ever left me angry at me. Nobody ever left, talking shit. It was never, we didn't have some big falling out. I didn't have a lot of bad blood. There was nothing like that. It just eventually people would go do something different. And rarely did I have anybody who could come hang with me, which you would think if they're learning from me, they're going to start to level up here, right? They may not quite hit that. That may be rare, but I'm at least going to bring people from here to here. And sometimes I did. Don't get me wrong. It's not like that never happened. I've trained a lot of really talented individuals over my career, but I couldn't listen to people very well, and I didn't deal with their emotions well. And when somebody was struggling with something, I just didn't have a lot of advice or support because I didn't have advice or support for myself. I just buried it and went to work. So that was my response. If somebody's mentally and emotionally struggling, it was really like, get your ass to work, dude. Go control it. Fucking deal with it. And if you can't deal with it, then you're too weak, right? Like if I've been through far worse than you, that's really what it created. Is in my own mind, I had been through so much more than you, and I still do it. So if you're too big of a pussy to deal with whatever emotional trauma you're dealing with that isn't even at my level, like I don't have time to babysit you. Either follow me or get out. And again, I would never say it in that way. It's not like I was that big of an asshole, but that was my mentality was get in or get out or sink or swim. And if you can't follow, like, you're not cut out for it. And I've gone through a total transition in the last 3 or 4 years that really kind of woke me up. And if you really want to get into, some depths of that for me, there's things that help me with it. And I don't have a problem talking about it very open. It doesn't mean that I think this is for everybody in any way, shape, or form, but what started happening is I had some things hit. In 2017, I was helping run kind of a larger organization in a retail environment. And the long story short is I ended up getting fired. And it was a rocking moment for me. So this is after Solar City. So Solar City,
tell them the story there just to really give them a
I'll take you through. So long story short, guys, for 10, 12 years, I was always a top rep in the top 1%. But building teams, it would come. I could recruit because people wanted to learn. They wanted to follow me. They wanted to be a part of, a culture and a team where they had one of the top guys or the top guy they could follow. So it wasn't hard to get recruits, right? Hard to keep them for me. And once they realized I wasn't there as much emotionally to support them as they needed, I train them, right? But that's not what really people need. Like training's great, right? Learning's great. They need emotional support from somebody who's been there. They need to learn your mentality, and they need to learn it in a loving way, not in a go follow me way, right? Just do it. That doesn't work. And that's who I was. So anyways, I got because of my resume, people would still offer me positions and assume that I was really, really great in those roles. And I got put into a retail role where I was over hundreds of people. Don't think I was doing bad with it, but I hadn't learned to work as well with others, is what I should say, both up and down. And I had some, little bit of beef with some leadership that wasn't working out the way I had hoped. In hindsight, there's definitely things on my end that I could have been doing differently to better gel together with those individuals. So long story short, I was with an upper leader, and when that happens, either it's you or them. And if they're in the higher position, then it's probably you. And that was an ego hit, man. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, but it was an ego hit for a while. And I ended up just kind of doing my own thing, started my own dealer, went out to California and started traveling back and forth, which ends up leading to where I'm at now. So it's like I said, it's the best thing that ever happened to me, put me on the path I'm on. But when I was out there, I dealt for years with like heavy back pain, which was a huge trial of mine in the door-to-door, world, like trying to stay on top where I was very physically demanding. I had back surgery in 2014, and for 10 years I had like super debilitating pain. And so I'd been put on medication for it and used pain pills, never to a place where I was, mismanaging them at all. But it's kind of like, what is the end of this? When does this stop? And I think that also led to me feeling, after years of using those, like just zombie-ish, right? I was just like, this is what I do. I show up here, I go sell tons of accounts, I check out, and then I go home and I'm tired. Um, so I just felt like I'd lost myself a little bit. And anyways, as I get to California, things had become more and more popular around the legalization of marijuana, and so many people recommended I use it for my back pain. And anyways, long story short, I completely kick pain pills, and I utilize that as a medical situation for myself. But it did something else to me. It slowed my mind down. My fast mind of just go, 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 go. It slowed it down, and it's almost like it helped me just come out a little bit of the fog I was in and the focus on myself, and started to think about other people and my relationships totally different. And I spent a lot of that too. I don't want to say, oh, it's all because of this. No, that was just one piece to it. I was also traveling to California alone. I checked out of the space for a minute. I wanted to break from the highlights and the recruiting and the big organizations. So I checked out, and I was spending, weeks at a time in hotel rooms by myself while out selling. So a lot of self-reflection, a lot of inner work, got heavily into yoga, meditation, and all of those things. It calmed my mind. I think it brought me back a little bit to my own self, my own intuition. And I just started to wake up and reflect on the last 15 years of, just the differences. And I also went through a period of time where I had some other personal life changes. I think during some of those changes, whether it's true or not, I felt some heavy judgment from others for certain changes I was making. I think people place expectations on you that you've always been this way. So now that you're this way, and you place them on yourself too. So, going through some personal transitions, I felt that, regardless of how true it was. I felt those things, and that led to just kind of more thoughts of empathy for others, what they're going through, regardless of whether I feel like it was as difficult as mine. I just shifted my perspective and how I dealt with others and how I led others. And as I started to then decide to build into organizations, everything changed. It went from, I could still recruit people, but I dealt with them all differently. And since that moment, my career has exploded. And now we've got a head count of, close to 500 reps, and I've managed and dealt with people completely different. And the number one, breakthrough for me truly was empathy for others, and understanding that no matter what you're going through and how hard you think it is, it's no different for somebody else. Whether their thing actually isn't as hard isn't up to you to decide. The level of life they're in today makes that thing just as heavy, and they're trying to navigate that, and they need somebody to help them through it that's already been there. So it's like we talked about earlier, the more you level up, the more you're going to face bigger stressors. And as you learn to deal with those, you're going to level up more. And later on, those big stressors will no longer seem as big as they used to, because your problems get bigger as you grow up, right? Or as you grow to higher levels of leadership and personal development. So it's just learning that you got to use those to help other people, not use them to prop yourself up in your own ego of, I've had hard things, I've been through hard things, look at me. It's, no, what have you been through? How does that help you have empathy for others and help them through hard times, so that they truly feel like you changed their life? Because that's where you will impact people. That's where you're going to create followship, right? There's leadership and there's recruiting because you've done something cool. Like that's no different than, it's like, think of when you knock on a door, to maybe give some analogy to the actual door-to-door space. If you knocked on a door and you had a good preoccupation breaking question, you're like, hey, look at this. And you grab their attention for 5 seconds. If you can't hold it now and speak with clear, articulate, words that create value for them, that want them to keep them listening, then they're not going to listen for another 30 seconds. You're dealing with this at a much higher level. First, what can you go do to be impressive? What can you overcome in your personal life and level up to go personally be impressive, to where people go, wow, look at what he did. There's your preoccupation breaker. Yeah. But once you get them here, how are you going to now really give them value And to me, that's using your personal life experiences to have empathy, to listen, to love, and help them through that emotionally, while providing training and support that a 1%, high level individual could provide. You do both of those things at the exact same time, you're going to gain a trust that is extremely uncommon, right? Most people are not going to be able to provide something like that for people, and they're going to eventually leave them. They're going to look for somebody who can.
Wow. You got to go back like 10 minutes, re-listen to that. That was deep, bro. I have almost 3 pages of notes right now. Okay. So let me ask you this then. Hindsight's 2020. Top performers, the guys that have been able to make it through year after year, we can say, wow, I made it out. Okay, I'm here. And that helps us now come to the next level and be like, okay, this is the exact, it's like another door. Okay. For instance, another police officer that's pissed off at life today, I know exactly how to handle this. And in life, when those things happen to you, it's what it sounds like, is you now know how to approach that. So tell me, Tyler, for the guys that are the Golden Door and girls that are Golden Door Award winners that don't know how to deal with and see trends in life that keep happening to them, it's hindsight's easy for you to say, Tyler, you've made it out. You went from dickhead to saving grace for 500 sales reps.
Not dickhead. I was just a little self-serving. That's all, Mikey.
Self-serving.
No,
all right.
I was probably a dick. That's fair.
I was just summarizing your words. It sounded like you were a dickhead. You weren't a dickhead to me. I didn't really care. I don't know. Anyways, there's a quote that I've said on the show multiple times. It's a quote from Kobe Bryant. He said, like, lazy people, I don't understand you. I don't get you, and I don't want to get you. You're not my people, basically. That's paraphrasing it, but it's the same thing, and that's kind of leads me into my question is, for the people that don't see
lost you for half second,
2020,
Mikey.
how to get out of that and how to approach that, what are you doing now to say, okay, cool? How you just said slow down. So you're using yoga, meditation, other medical stuff to help you slow down. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have as 20, 30 year olds, life is so fast. We have, the iPhone
Mikey.
and the computers. I mean, my God, I got like 17 screens here. And
Mikey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. I lost you. No?
Hey, we had disconnection. My Wi-Fi has been a little bit weird today, but I just reconnected to my phone. But I lost you at Kobe Bryant has a quote about not understanding lazy people.
Yeah. So basically, I'm just going into the question. So basically, it's okay. What are you doing now? Because you had to you're able to slow yourself down. Because what happens when we get like this is a brand new sales rep, right? It happens to me too sometimes too. You start to get a little anxious on the door, a little anxious on a $1 million close right here. I gotta get this money. Gotta make sure to close the deal. How you're slowing yourself down? So when people that don't already have that character trait, what are you doing now to, like, how can you, what are some advice that you can give them for them? You get the question. I'm trying to articulate it enough, but
I'm going to lean on, I think I understand what you're saying, and there's probably, we could probably go a few directions with this, but
right.
First thing I'm going to say is let me lean on the Kobe Bryant quote first, because I know that quote well. And I think there's a couple pieces to that quote, right? The first one is when he's talking about not understanding, I just don't get him. I don't follow him. Right. Fair. Love the mindset, right? Not knocking Kobe. I love that mindset. And I think my problem that was my same mindset.
Yeah.
I don't get you. If you can't follow me, I don't get you. You're too lazy. You're not a part of me. I get it. Right now, once you're in the NBA and you're on a team with individuals who have qualified to be in the NBA, you're already dealing with top 1%ers because they made it to the NBA. So you can probably be a little bit more of a hard ass of saying, you better follow me because I already know you have what it takes to get up here. So it's like if I went out on a team and with a bunch of 250 to 300 account alarm reps and I'm a 400 account rep, these guys are probably guys who can take a little bit of hard nose like character where I'm like, let's go right now, follow me, versus somebody who's really trying to figure it out in the first place, or even one of those individuals who's gone through a hard time. So I just pivoted, and I don't look. Here's what I don't think. Right? Obviously, there's lazy people out there, but I'd like as a leader, I repivot my thought. I don't think so. Who in their right mind that's extremely lazy and wants to not work at all decides to go into door to door? It's 100% commission. The expectation's been set that if you sit on your couch, you're not making anything. So I think somebody who's made the decision to do door to door in the first place, like even if they have lazy tendencies, I think they want to get out of them. And them choosing to do something that hard and do something that they know is all going to be on their shoulders if they don't perform. Like they've at least got to that place. So you got to give them credit for even getting there. And then I think you have to look at it as, okay, it's not that they're lazy, they lack something. They either lack competence, which means they're not confident to go out on the doors, which means they have anxiety because they don't feel like they're going to perform, which means they feel like they're going to be wasting their time. So then they choose not to work because they feel like working not only is hard, gives them anxiety, but they're not going to get a result out of it anyways, which means they just don't believe in themselves, right? So it's like it's a lack of belief and confidence in themselves. That's why they're not working, because they don't feel like it's going to pay off, right? If they felt like every door they knocked was going to be a yes, and they were going to make 5 to 10 grand a deal because they're selling solar, or they're going to go sell 10 in a day pest control, like if they thought that and they had 100% confidence in that, they wouldn't be on their couch.
No, absolutely.
There's no way. So it's not that they're lazy; they lack something. So you need to give them what they lack. Do they lack competence? Well, if I've got a 250 account rep who's done that before, it's not a competency issue. They're probably going through something emotionally that is holding them back, that's got them messed up right now. So that individual I'm going to speak to differently and say, hey, man, I already know you have the skills. You already know you have the skills. Let me build you back up and remind you of that, because maybe you need some reminding. But you need an ear right now. That's what you need. You need somebody to listen to what you're going through, have empathy and love for you, support you as a friend, take you out and sit down, have some lunch, instead of saying, get in the car, drop you off, go do your shit. Like, that guy already knows how to do it. He needs some help right now. He needs some emotional support, versus a new guy who just showed up, who wants to go sit on a curb because he doesn't think he's going to get anything. He doesn't believe in the reward if he goes and spends the time, because he lacks confidence and competency. So I think you're dealing with people from a totally, it just depends who you're dealing with. But before, again, I would have dealt with them all the same way. Follow me, get in. I don't understand you. If you're lazy, goodbye.
So how is that now? Okay, I like that. Appreciate that. That's very helpful. I think leaders need to understand that more than anything. I was always a empathy guy. One of my strengths, I've taken the Strength Finders test like 2 or 3 times now, and I've bought hundreds of the books. It's one of my favorite books to give guys. Actually, with some of your offices that I coach right now, I have all of them going through it right now. If you didn't know that, they're going through Strength Finders. So have you taken Strength Finders yet?
I've actually never done that specifically. No, I've heard about it a few different times.
It's a great book. It helps the leaders understand how to specifically motivate their guys. Because again, sometimes it's not just the competence. It's they're, like you said, they're going through something emotional that they don't want to talk about, and they need someone that has the emotional intelligence to be able to understand that, to walk them through that, because otherwise you can take someone that's 200, 300, 400 alarm accounts in a year back down to 100, or 50, 60 deals a year in solar back to 10, right? And just, getting cancels like crazy. And then it's just how the downward spiral goes.
Right.
So in that case, it kind of sounds like these are some of the principles that you live by, this empathy for others. I had a question earlier that I didn't get to ask, so I'll bring it back up, is how do you think it would have actually changed? And assuming you were ready for this, you now, do you think it would have changed anything? And if so, what would it have changed if you would have had it's like the individual, they call it the individualistic trait, strength, where you can be like empathetic, not like sympathetic, but like empathetic, right? Not like, oh, I feel bad for you, poor guy, right? Bless his heart. Like actually empathetic. So how would have changed for Tyler now if you would have put Tyler back in, let's just say 2016?
Yeah. Oh no, it would have been. I think it would have been night and day. Yeah, I think I would. No, who knows, because industry things have
Right.
changed. Solar City
A
disappeared,
lot. Yeah.
so something would have changed on that end. But
Yeah. I'm just saying personally within your offices and your teams and your family, just in general, like where
yeah.
you would have been at.
Well, 100%. So two things, right? Because you're touching, we've been heavily focused on how this affects work, and haven't even mentioned the personal side, right? And anybody who's ever gone through some type of separation, like, I've talked about, I've gone through this past year from a personal standpoint, knows how difficult something like that is. And there's always a period of time where it's people start pointing fingers,
Yeah.
um, and you've got to be able to take accountability and responsibility. If a relationship of any kind doesn't work out, you have accountability. I don't, if you're involved in the relationship, you're accountable to some extent, right? And there's different levels of accountability, but that happens in a marriage. That happens with relationships with your children. That happens with relationships with your recruits and your team members and those who you're supposed to be leading. If if you have a relationship and you're working together, and then at some point in time you're no longer doing that, there's some level of accountability that has to be taken of why that separation took place, right? And sometimes time in a season, right? It's okay. On to the next for both individuals, both parties. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But you can still learn from it. And so um, when I start looking at like the empathy side of things, right? When you have more empathy for somebody, you deal with them completely different. You listen better. You're more, and this is probably the biggest word, is intention. Your intention is completely different, right? Completely different. If my intention is not, how do I get this guy out on the doors to work as many hours as possible to maximize his time and efforts, then I'm going to get this result. And that's not the case. Now it is, okay, cool. I've got a guy who is struggling. Clearly, he's not producing what he has the ability to produce, especially because we've seen him produce at higher levels before. So something has changed internally, right? The externals haven't changed. He still has the talent, the training, all the things. Something internally is going on. So first thing I've got to be able to do is say, okay, I need to tap into the internal of this other individual. And the first thing you need to know to be able to do that, it's not to go and pepper them with questions even. It's first you got to be vulnerable. So first you got to be willing to be vulnerable. So you got to go in the intention of, hey, I'm going to go be vulnerable, open myself up. And if I want trust from somebody else to talk to me about what they're going through and what they're dealing with, I better show them trust first. So if I want something, I better give that exact same thing up that I'm looking for. And I better open myself up vulnerably and put myself out there a little bit for them to understand my intention is true, it's real, and it's genuine, and I care about them. And I'm trying to open myself up enough to where they see, okay, he's being real. And if you can do that, then they're going to open up to you. And then if they open up to you, you now have the real objection or concern. And then it's not looking at it as an objection or concern that you need to overcome, but a human who's actually going through a difficult experience. And do you have life experience that can help with this situation? And if you do, cool. Let's share it in a way where it's not overcoming the objection. It's just saying, hey, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your experience is because yours is totally different than mine. The only thing I can relate it to is this, and share that moment, that time, and what you learn. And then from there, just say, I love you. It's going to be okay. We all go through shit. The worst thing you can do is go through this and also get yourself in a financially stuck position because you're being held back over here. Let's control these things we can control. So I think on that note, it's just learning how to speak to people differently. And if I would have known how to speak to people differently like that, I would have helped so many more people. And that's really just it. It's how do you help more people? If you help more people stay. If you help more people, your reputation increases for helping people. Those people bring more people, and they all keep staying because now you've also taught people underneath you what it looks like to lead. And so now they're willing to go be vulnerable with people, and they're willing to listen and help. And now they have a story of when they were struggling and they got helped, and they're going to go use that to help more people. And it's all about giving back and helping people. And if you can just go help people get through their difficult times, like they're going to stay. You're going to retain people because you have greater value to them. And when you lose your value, like if all your value is I have some trainings for you, well, eventually they're going to get your trainings and it's going to be over. Like that's not continued value. right? So there's got to be more to it. And that goes both ways on the personal side. Like if it's just you had a relationship, you got married, and so then it's over, and okay, now you're with me. Now recruits on my team. I recruited you. It's over. No, there's got to be much more to that. There's got to be a lot more vulnerability and openness and trust and intention and time spent across all boards. So
I love that. It brings up a quote that I've thought about, I've written down. It's on one of my mirrors. It's by someone that has made some major mistakes in the last like 5 years, and in a position that he was in. He's a very famous person. He's a pastor. I love this dude. And the funny thing about that kind of stuff is it's always, and I kind of understand where you're at too, but it's kind of funny how the moment somebody does something that's kind of like not really in line with what everyone thinks you need to be doing, you're all of a sudden the worst person on earth. And not realizing that if I were to follow you around with a fucking camera for 48 hours, I would show you you would shut the fuck up, that really pisses me off because people do that to me all the time. I don't normally like say drop F-bombs like that on the show. I don't really care right now, but it really pisses me off that people are not showing grace and forgiveness to other people. Because if I were just to show you, and it happened in 2020, bro.
Yep.
I think I was watching like Patrick Bet David and a couple other guys, like something happened in 2020 to everybody that like all of a sudden now are just more like, and I think it had to do with the election as well. I think that with the politics, it's really,
so much
really
political unrest and
very, 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 dude. It's like
spewing of negative energy everywhere.
Golly. And yeah, but he said something that you mentioned. He said something like that. What he said was, if you can just get through or get over what you're going through, then maybe you can help everybody else around you or the people that are around you. Because a lot of times we want to we want to, look internally, like how bad I am, how crappy I am, how I messed up so bad over there, how I, whatever, I went bankrupt, I lost the girl, I could have, called my friend before he did this to himself, whatever. Like it's all, it's all introspective. And that's what the culture has really pushed us to look internally, which obviously in self-mastery, the journey of self-mastery, you have to look internal, but to stop at simply looking internal about how bad you are, you're never going to be able to get over yourself and then start helping everybody else. And then realizing like, oh, wow, like the way that you say empathy, you're truly mean the true meaning of empathy, which is amazing.
Well, I think I'll give you an example of where it's like I've and there's a fine balance, right? Going through some of the personal things I've gone through this year. Obviously that comes with difficulty and trials. And one of the emotions I would pull out, right, is guilt, right? Guilt of failure of not having a relationship that was going to be, this for everything in your mind, not work out. Guilt of the impact that has on children. Like there's a lot of guilt internally that I've had to process and deal with from that. And have to come to terms and acceptance of and give myself grace with it too, right? Yeah. But on the flip side, if you can start to look at your trials as things that are going to allow you to continue to have more empathy for others and help more people in the future, I'm also looking at it at this point, right, where I've arrived is, are you kidding me? 50% of people at some point in time, on average, will go through divorce. Do you know how many more people I can empathize with now? Half. I just picked up something that, like, from an empathy standpoint and a leadership standpoint, that I can speak to and understand people at a level I never would have had the opportunity, to. And so from a trial standpoint, from a stressor standpoint, like you've got to learn to just think, okay, what am I going through now? And if I get through this, what is that going to give me that I didn't previously have that allows me to speak and work and help others? Because if you're in a leadership role, like that's what it is. So the more you go through, the more stresses you deal with, overcome, just the more arrows you have in your quiver to help people. And that's all it is. Anybody you talk to, we brought on some really cool speakers this year to help from like an investment standpoint. We do this smart money event, thing. And we've had people come in, Casey Baugh, Jeff Mendez, and a bunch of other names. Won't keep naming them all, but those guys have really, really risen to another level in their lives from, a financial standpoint. And you listen to any of them speak. And they all talk about the same thing. It's all about giving back and helping as many people as you possibly can. And so if you can come to terms with understanding that all of your uncomfortable, difficult trials you're dealing with, you think are holding you back, are there for you as stepping stones to learn and grow so you can help way more people, it like light bulbs start to click, right? You start to change your train of thought and you use all the things that are coming at you in a totally different way. And it's no different. That's all door is. It's turning negatives into positives. Every time a negative comes, how do I switch this to a positive? Whether it's a customer objection, whether it's a mental thought, that's all it is. You've got to take whatever's coming in and saying, how can I alter my perception of this into a positive thing and now go use it. Instead of dwelling on the negative and getting so stuck on it that you end up, stuck for years because you can't get past something and the way you've chosen to perceive it. So,
yeah, I think I would say that's probably the biggest attribute I've seen in every single Golden Door Award winner that I've interviewed is their ability to have a positive mental attitude, a can-do attitude, and a whatever it takes mindset. And then you said two things that I wrote down that I circled is control what you can control. And then basically in a summary, you said life happens for me, not life happens to me.
Right.
And it seems like that's kind of where now you're heading into. By the way, did you end up doing therapy? You said you did do therapy.
Yeah, I still am in active therapy right now and have no problems saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. Why? I talked about that with other guys on the show. Why? What's up? Like, why are you a baby back bitch if you do therapy? Like I do therapy. I've been doing therapy for years.
Well, here's what's funny, right? And it's same thing. It's the perception of something, negative to a positive. And in the past, I think generationally, especially, right, even more so, I would say for men. Not to try to get into that, but I think there's such a men are stoic figures. When hard things happen, you put your big girl panties on and you go get it done. Yet, if I want to become the most elite basketball player in the world, you're not going to do it without a coach. So, you can do that without a coach. If I wanted to reach an elite level of playing tennis, which I did, like I had to have a private instruction, multiple times a week, almost, for years and years and years straight, and tons of investment financially, emotionally, like physically, into becoming the best in what I was trying to do. And there's no different in sales, right? Like people are willing to go pay for a sales coach, or they'll go work for a company who they know has high level enough leadership that they're going to receive that support and that training for free, which is why when you go do something impressive, you can recruit people because they want your training. They want to learn from you so that they can rise up, right? But somehow, because the word therapy got given a negative connotation, they've just looked at it all wrong. Sorry, it's just a coach. It's a mental coach, right? And because of some of the way that's looked at sometimes, because you rise to a certain level, in my situation right now, right? And I'm sitting in a CEO position of a business, not to use title, I absolutely hate that. But, I'm not in a position sometimes where every single aspect of my life is what should be opened up nonstop 24/7 to everybody, in the organization. There's times where it's like, okay, I could use some mental coaching from somebody outside my world here who has a totally different perspective than I have, that doesn't live in this realm, who has life experience so different than mine, that is also trained in how to help people that are going through situations like this. And it's literally what they do for a living, right? Like, why would I not want to speak with that person on a reoccurring basis, invest in my mental health, if what we're sitting here talking about, the highest producers struggle with leveling up to the next level is their own mental ability to control emotion and stressors to get here, right? Or when a certain rep that we've seen perform before is now struggling to perform, we know it's not a competency issue. We know it's an emotional issue, which means, again, something inside of them is struggling with managing their emotions to a level where they can now perform. It's affecting their performance, right? Yet people don't talk about, how important it would be to invest in your own emotional health to make sure that you either avoid that or that you get through it quicker if you're in it. So, this year specifically for me, and it wasn't the first time, but, about a couple years back, it's the first time I'd ever had any, professional therapy experience of any kind, I found it immediately like just valuable, right? It creates more self-awareness. Like, and that would be the number one thing I say, look, you have to become more self-aware. If you're not more self-aware, you can't change things about yourself that are holding you back. And you can't change how you're emotionally dealing with things. You can't recognize patterns, right? Like they're your patterns, and they're your patterns for a reason, because you've created patterns for years and years and years. So until you recognize the pattern, you're not going to be able to change it. And over time, can you recognize patterns yourself? 100%. Why would I want to wait though? Why do I want to wait to recognize a pattern that somebody else professionally is trained to recognize? Could help me see it quicker. And if I can see it quicker, then I can deal with it quicker. And if I can get past it quicker, then I'm going to level up faster. So, the place I'm in today, we've in a very short period of time grown to be one of the largest solar companies in the United States. We're growing fast. I don't have time for that. I don't have time to wait to figure out my own patterns that I'm not seeing right now, nor am I going to. Like, I'd rather go get help to have somebody show me my patterns quicker, so that when I have a business that's leveling up really quickly, well, I better be leveling up with it, because people need me to, So that's my take on therapy. It's a coach, and if you see it any different way, you're stuck in the past with old connotations of what it is.
No, I love that you share that. 100% agree with you on that. I spent 6 figures a year, last few years in a row, and will continue to, on coaching, therapy, professional licensed people,
Yep.
in all areas of life. I believe in, in whole life success. So I need a mental coach, need a financial coach, need all of these. Yeah, I think we've gotten away from taking care of yourself, because because it's almost like, yo, don't be selfish. It's like this like weird dogma of like, don't be selfish, dude. Like, you're so selfish. All you think about is you. It's like, well, if I don't help me, then like, what do they tell you in an airplane? Again, right. The same thing they talk about today. If we lose, yeah, if we lose altitude, it's going to be oxygen. You're going to need oxygen. There's a mass that comes down. Put it on you first. I know you're freaking out. You want to help your children out first, but you need to help you out. And I think that simple life lesson right there alone, if we would just remember that, then so many things in our businesses would not fail. We just wouldn't fail, because we would be taking care of ourselves.
100%.
I think a lot of guys are just afraid to not be able to answer the phone calls. Like, if they go on a retreat of a mastermind or whatever, a 3-day retreat with, Dan Fleischman and $100 million mastermind, and I can't get away for 3 days because, oh my God. It's like, dude, no, every time I went to those events, and I'd go to 2-3 of them a year back then, I would come back so fired up. And now when I do them, my wife's like, she's just ready, because she knows I gotta come back with all these ideas. Or just have clarity. I think that's what the key there is. Let me go back to this real quick, circle back, and then I need to transition. But you said control leads to comfort. Remember saying that? That was something that was profound. I've never heard that before. A lot of people want control, but they're out of control, and they don't. Everyone wants. Most individuals, even high performers. Even I talk to my guys this all the time. I'm like, look, dude. They're like, dude, Mikey, do you take a day off? And I go, I don't remember the days off, technically speaking, but like, yeah, sure. Like, I can tell you, like, 7 days ago, I was in San Diego Zoo with my wife. That was a day off. We were like running around like, children, getting ice cream at every stand we could find, and, popcorn and whatever, like, just like being kids. Like, yeah, I do take days off, but, even as a high performer, even yourself, Tyler, I'm assuming that your body naturally, or your person, your soul, whatever, naturally wants to go to doing the easier things, right? Like, we're like water. So like, even with your sales reps and your managers, we have to learn how to fight through that. So explain to me a little bit about that comfort leads, or that control leads to comfort. Can you explain that a little bit to me more?
I think it can be hit from, multiple different aspects, right? Look, the bottom line is I lean into that more emotionally, right? If you can control your emotions, you're going to be more comfortable, right? It's the number one thing. You have to learn to control your emotions. The second you stop controlling your emotions is when you get out of control. That's when you get overly uncomfortable. It's when you get overly overly overwhelmed. It's when you get completely overwhelmed. And when people get completely overwhelmed, that's when they stop doing, because they don't know, they have so much coming from every angle that it's too overwhelming to pick a thing and just go start doing it and start checking the boxes off the list. Right. And when the list grows and the list grows and the list grows, and so many things are coming at you from different angles, that you lose control of your emotions and you lose the ability to create an outline, create a structure, create a to-do list, get everything in front of you, prioritize those things, bucket those things, calendarize those things, set aside time specifically to handle them in an organized, logical manner, right? Like those things, emotionally control creates the control of all the things that you're stressing about. When you create and manage that, and then you create a plan to execute it, both in your mind, on paper, in your calendar, then it's going to take place. But
All right, let me slow you down there. Let's go back to, because that is the answer that I don't care who you learned that from. That's the answer to getting out of a rut. Now, Tyler, tell me what you're going to do first. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now, because what the listeners are going to think of is, oh, that was really good words, Tyler. I believe that too. Everyone believes that, and it's true. And obviously, you've lived it. What is the very first step when you're getting you right now 500 reps, multiple regions, flights, breakups, this, that, the. What do you? In the first thing you do, what typically speaking is the first thing you'll do so you can get the momentum cycle going again?
Well, I think what starts to happen first is everything starts to feel like a 911. Everything starts to get mass categorized. Like I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. I'm like, right. So first, let's get it out of here. Let's get it somewhere else, and let's make it visible for me. Right. So this is me and how I handle things. Anybody who knows me loves that I'm obsessed with whiteboard, and my staff made fun of me this morning because we didn't even have a whiteboard where I was at, but I had a dry erase, marker in my hand. They go everywhere with me. I end up at home with them in my pockets. I take them home from work. It's a problem, but that's where I love to dump my thoughts, man. So I'll draw lines on a board, and I'll write down personal, I'll write down work, I'll write down whatever other category, financial, I'm dealing with, and I'll just write down my to-do list. And then I'll brain dump every stressor or every item that's, in my mind that's stressing me out. I'm going to write every single thing up there. Right. And then it's like, I'll highlight, or I'll grab a red marker, and I'm going to circle the top 1, 2, 3 things on each list that are like, these are the things that have to get done immediately. Like these are the true 911s, or these are the true priorities that are creating the largest amount of stress in this bucket. And now if it's something I can do like right now with a phone call, right? Like sometimes it's just something stupid. Like you got all this shit and all of a sudden your insurance called and it's out of date, and it's just one more thing. And that seems like the end of the world, right? Like pick up the phone, call the insurance company, just scratch that off your list. It's going to take you 10 seconds, get it done. Right. But make a plan for those things now. So if it is a quick phone call that you can do in that moment that you're writing your to-do list, and call it, get off, scratch the list. For me, watching myself put a line through that list is like, but there's a never-ending to-do list. It's never going to stop. By next week, I'm going to have more things. And so the to-do list never ends. But if you're prioritizing those things, and then to me, the next step here, and this is now getting into like organizational leadership and organizational self-management, calendar, right? It's one of my weaknesses to this day. But to go from being a top rep to running a team, to running a region, to running divisions, to running, the company where I'm at today, and where it sits, and all the different departments and the meetings. Like half the time I feel like I have my whole schedule just filled with meetings. When do I actually take action on something? Right. And it's calendarized. Everything has to be in a calendar with its set time in place. So once you get that up on the board and out of your mind, or on paper and out of your mind, or in your phone's notes, to-do list, wherever it is you do things, right? Then like create a time. If it's not right then in the moment, a phone call you can make, set aside a time for that item. And if you know it's a 30-minute item, an hour item, or if you know it's a meeting with somebody that needs to be handled or a crucial conversation, right? It might not even be like, oh, I need to call and pay this bill and I can scratch it off the list. It might be, I'm so stressed because there's this emotional problem people keep boiling up about. And the truth is, it's happening because I'm avoiding a crucial conversation with somebody I know is going to be uncomfortable. I've been putting it off because I've got so many things to do that I write off. I'm too busy. No, you just don't want to go have the uncomfortable conversation with the individual you need to. And if you had it, it would release so much emotional stress because every time you go have a crucial conversation you want to have, you're like, I'm glad I had it. Every time that's how it goes. So it's go have the crucial conversations, go schedule time and put it in a block on your calendar and then go do it and then cross it off your list. And you'll just start to notice first getting it out of your head onto a board or onto wherever you put it onto, that in and of itself is a massive stress reliever because you've now organizationally structured things in your mind. It's no longer chaos. It's organized chaos now, right? And then when you can start putting some lines through things, it's just going to minimize the amount of organized chaos you have. And watching it go down will de-stress you, and getting it done will make you feel accomplished. You'll get that little reward in your brain that it's like, oh, that's gone. Cool.
Yep.
Right. So.
Yeah, I think untangling guys, it's so funny, dude. And like in what you and I do, with just like slowing the piece down and then just putting it in the right direction, meaning a sales rep, a manager, a leader, whatever. It's very simple to do, but it's hard for them to see it because they're in the thick of it, right? And that's why you pay for coaching. That's why I pay for coaching. It's very hard for us as individuals, for whatever reason, to see how simple it actually is just to slow down and be like, oh, cool, I guess you need to put this all on paper and then start acting. And then
do you know how much, if anybody's listening in the solar world, and specifically if any of my people are listening to this, please just take everything that just got discussed and do that with your pipeline. Just do that. Right? How many phone calls and emails do you get? All of a sudden 3 pissed customers come at you and now your whole pipeline's destroyed and you can't even focus and you've just lost this. Just write every customer down and highlight where they're at and what needs to be done. And it's like just getting it in front of your face, every single one, and knowing what the action items are to get them back on track and move forward in the pipeline, which is any sales, 101. Like it's not as complicated as you make it, right? Everybody just over stresses because they're not getting it out and organizing the chaos and creating a plan.
I will say that my line is, if I put a gun to your head and you had to tell me the 5 things I need to get done right now,
right?
What would they do?
Yep.
And they go, boom, boom, right out. I'm like, so what? I don't understand why was that so hard to come up with?
Go get it.
Why are we stuck?
Knock it out.
Yeah. And then I think the accountability part of it comes into play there too, which is helpful when you have other guys helping you and pushing you and doing the same thing, which is what I know Vital does a lot of, is investing in their guys, which is super, it's just inspiring to know, because one, I work with a lot of your guys and I see it, and obviously that's coming from top down. So top down, bottom up, the whole 9 yards, everyone's doing it. So it's really cool to see what Vital's culture is all about. It's not just, I would say it's same one, it's uncommon. And 2, it's this whole life success, which is one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to your company and all of your guys, because it's who I vibe and jam with most. So the guys that I've coached for the last year with Vital have, every single one of them has been outstanding, and really wanted to win. Like, these guys want to win. I'm like,
I love that, dude.
Cool.
We've got, straight up, man. I can't take the credit on that one. Like, we've, obviously I would like to think there's some credit, but at the end of the day, we just have some incredible people, and there's an energy that has become kind of magnetic, and it just keeps attracting more and more good people. So I love hearing that about our organization, because it's what we feel from the inside 100%. So to have somebody from the outside say it and feel it is, proud moment of that.
100%. All right, let me transition here, and then we'll try to land the plane. I wanted to ask some sales stuff. I've watched a lot of your stuff. I think from your university, from previous videos that you had. I want to talk about recruiting. I'm getting that asked a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
You've obviously recruited a metric ton of people. So what is your current way of recruiting?
Yeah, no, I think
It
that's
looks
great.
like.
Look, so first, I think there's a couple things there, right? We already touched on the beginning, which is first you gotta have something you're recruiting to that's impressive in some way, shape, or form. So if you are a manager, or let's go back, if you're trying to become a manager, right? In our industry, typically that means you got to recruit first, right? Got to have done something impressive yourself, and enough so that you call a friend that you know, and you tap your own interpersonal network, and you have a story to tell. So first, you need a story, right? And there's different stories at every level. So if I'm a rep who wants to get into leadership one day, and I know that I have to start building and growing a team and proving that I can recruit people, train them, support them, manage them, and then I'm worthy of moving into leadership, then I need to go learn the job myself. I need to do something impressive. So that's step one we've already talked about, right? You got to create a story for yourself that people want to follow. Step two, if I'm a leader, right, then it's I'm now there, and I need to show something impressive from a leadership standpoint. This is where I missed for a long time. I still stayed focused on being impressive myself. And if you want to create an environment that people stay in, when they stay, they now keep reaching out to their networks. So you teach them to make sure they're creating their own story so one day they can get to your role so you can duplicate yourself, but they got to go bring the people. Your network's only going to be so big. You've got to work through other people's networks. And to do that, you got to create a space where other people want to bring other people, right? Like you got to create a culture where that's what people want. We've already kind of talked about that, so I don't want to be a dead horse dead. I think that really comes from being able to supply value to people. And there's a lot of different types of value, right? I think the impressive side of it from a sales standpoint is you've got to be able, you have to have walked the walk. You have to be able to take what you've walked and break it down into logical, simple, easy, duplicatable training to create competent individuals who want to work because they feel like if they put the work in, they're going to get a result instead of wanting to sit on the curb. So you got to be able to give them that confidence and that training. Um, and then you've got to be able to support them emotionally on the other side, right? You have to be able to learn your own life experiences. You have to be willing to get vulnerable with those life experiences, share them with others so that they will share theirs with yours so you can actually help them. So as a leader, you've got to create a safe environment, a safe place where people feel comfortable bringing their emotional problems, and a culture of winning. So it's like, yeah, we're a safe place, but we're not a safe place where people just get together and cry a bitch about their emotional shit. We are that, and we perform at a high elite level. And if you're not ready to lead vulnerably and have people who are willing to get vulnerable with you so they can get help, then you've got to identify those people and get them out if they're not really there for that, right? And you've got to hold the line with an expectation. Like, here's who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and here's how frequently we do it. If you're struggling, we're going to help you get you back into the system, right? And this is the process and system we're going to follow. But if you're kicking against the pricks of that system, and then you've got to be swift to, you know, add by subtraction, right? You're going to create more value through subtracting those who aren't really feeling the vibe. They're not there to really produce and put in the work, and they're not there to emotionally work on themselves. But you got to be a leader who creates that system first. So I think first and foremost, those are the base level things. But then it starts to change, right? That organization's got to be duplicated. And then as a business, so now if you're asking me personally in my current state, what am I doing differently to recruit? Well, now it's completely different. As a CEO recruiting people, you're recruiting them to your organization. So your organization has to be doing something impressive. Your organization has to be doing something differentiated from others, right? If I'm just a sales rep recruiting somebody, then I better be in the top 20% to differentiate myself from the other 80, or the top 1% to differentiate myself from the 20. I have to be different. And that's really the only way you can be different as a sales rep, is to produce high level. As a manager, you can grow and recruit by creating a good space and culture and all the things of production and vulnerability and everything we've talked about. But the point is, not very many people do that. So doing those things is what's going to differentiate you from the other 80% and put you into the top 20 and then into the top 4 and into the top 1. You have to look around and say, what is everybody doing? And I got to do different. So as a business, that would be the number one thing, when you're sporting the hat today, and we've made comments about that. But when we talk about being uncommon, like, to me, that's what that is it's uncommon to be in the top 1%. It's uncommon to be in the top 20% what are the top 20% doing? How do we duplicate the things they're doing great? And what are they not doing, or what is nobody doing that you can do to differentiate yourselves to create and attract more attention? Right. So as an organization, I'm thinking two ways. The first thing I'm thinking is, what am I going to tell people about? Right. And how am I going to tell them? Well, first, I'm going to tell them by my people telling them. Right. And second, and then I'm going to tell it externally via social media, because it's the absolute best platform. That's the most underutilized platform, because people are too scared to get loud, proud, put their face on camera, share their message, or they don't know how they're differentiated. So they either share a poor message that's not differentiated, or they don't share one at all because they don't actually have something that differentiates them. So the first thing you have to know is you have to know your message. You have to know how you're different. You have to know your vision. And at a CEO level or a high level leader level, vision is everything. You have to be very clear about what your vision is and where you're going. So I look at that and I go, okay, where are we right now? How am I going to get there? Well, first I've got to have a vision big enough to lead people to. And then when they show up, we have to have an organization that backs the vision. So vision right now, I believe we can become one of the largest solar companies in the United States over the next 5 years. I think we can be in the top 5 from production, sales only, not even getting in the install side. How are we going to do that? Well, first we have to have a scalable platform. How are we going to do that? We're going to partner with one of the largest or solar installers in the United States. And proof shows that when you do that and you create a scalable platform, you can grow quickly, you can grow effectively, because you're not managing 10 different CRMs from 10 different installers and 10 different processes. And you're not teaching a department behind the scene of $15 an hour employees how to manage 10 processes when it's hard enough to get them to be good at one. So first you got to make the right decisions, the right partnerships. And I believe we've done that, which allows us to scale. Doesn't mean they're perfect. Doesn't mean we don't have problems. Doesn't mean there's, not faults behind it. But overall, the right system, the right partnerships, the right pieces are in play to scale at that length. Right. Next, you've got to departmentalize a business that's different. So when it comes to training and support, we know that in order to create an uncommon salesperson, which means that's somebody in the top 1%, that's who's uncommon, right? Well, they need to be competent so they actually want to go to work. We've already talked about that. So you create competency as an owner different than you do as a sales rep or a manager trying to get into the next position. As an owner, what program do we create that the second somebody onboards with us, they start having an experience that's different, one that's clean, that's smooth, that feels like one of the largest solar companies, that feels dialed and structured and processed. When they show up, do they already feel a part of something that's like, oh, okay, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. There was a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They showed me the steps. They knew the steps. They executed the steps. So when somebody gets onboarded with us, they're going to plug right into our training program. We don't allow them to go on the doors until they've completed it. So you can't work for our business until you've completed hours and hours of training of how to set an appointment. And the training's all my training, step A through Z. There's obviously a lot of other guys on there too, right? But initially, until they've completed my training, they can't move forward. So if you've completed it, and then they have to go through a series of pitch pass offs and demonstrate their competency levels. Well, if they're not receiving the competency in the training and they're not demonstrating it before they get started, you can't really be sure that they're competent before they go. And in our case, that was really, really important, because a piece of our business is a traveling program where we pay for flights and Airbnbs. So to pay for somebody's flight and Airbnb that has not demonstrated any level of competency, all because we want new recruits, is a pretty poor financial decision. It's also a really poor decision for the team they're going out on, to know that they're going to show up and they only have 10 days and we hope they know what they're doing. So we've created programs to make sure that people show up and they have a different experience. And a lot of our experience when we first got into the door-to-door industry was not that. It was, here's this video, or here's nothing. Here's a laminate. Good luck, go learn and fall on your face. And hey, a lot of people learn that way. And sometimes, sink or swim is a great mentality. I figured it out. You figured it out. A lot of us did. But how many people fell along the way? How many people fell along the way that didn't stay, weren't retained, who dropped off because they didn't leave, they didn't even have the level of support. So quality, high level online trainings, like that's just one small piece of a business, right? Next, you asked how we're recruiting. So kind of walking through like different areas of our business.
Oh, this is super important. This is like very important. People say, oh yeah, I'm going to recruit everybody in, and then they lose them. It's like the church. You got 2 people coming in the front door and 5 going out the back door.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. I can get loud and break people's occupation by saying we have this cool thing, but if they show up and they don't see something different, they don't experience something different, it's not going to be different, right? So as you go through every department in our business, not that I'm going to run through every single one and end up with this giant plug for why Vital's awesome and why you should work here, but we're looking and saying, what does the best company in the world that's ever been in our space do in this department that makes them so great? Awesome. Does that fit who we are? And how can we do it the same, or how can we do it in a similar fashion that we know works, but also make it our own? How can we differentiate? Or is there an area where we don't think anybody's ever done really well? And how could we do that one different? Or how could we mix that up and totally change the game, right? And that's our sales model is unique in and of itself in that role, right? And that's probably one of the biggest ones that's a differentiator is, people they get burnt out. We all came from a world of summer sales, and anybody who's done summer sales knows that by May, the end of May, 30 days in, and you got 90 more to go, half the team is burnt. They're already tired. They're already feeling monotonous. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's really far out. And these big audacious goals that they set, they're already starting to lower them because they're already getting into dissatisfaction stage because they're not reaching that. So altering a sales model is a unique way of doing it. And to the guys who came before us, the Todd Petersons of the world, summer sales was just that. Year round was so monotonous. It was just like, door to door forever, year round is my career, never stops. There's no light. How about we shorten it to a summer and just 4 months is the end of light? Okay, cool. It worked. They tripled volume in a 4-month period that it took people to do in 12 months. And there was a light, but those are still hard. And summers get long and they get monotonous. And people grow up to where they don't want to miss their summers and they don't want to move their kids away from schools and their friends while they're gone. So that model doesn't work for everybody forever, but it's a phenomenal model. So our 10-20 model, we mixed that up, and we started the traveling thing. It works really well, but we've also taken that model and duplicated it in our year-round programs. And so we've got year-round programs, we've got all these things, but the sales model is different. People work for 10 days and then they get a break. And it's not like we force them to not work during that time, but we give them ebbs and flows. We give them times and seasons, and everyone holds a line. And so when you bring the energy of hundreds of people all at once during a short period of time, there's a value in that you can't monetize, that people do not understand. It's like you said, before somebody had come in and done 20 in a short period of time, not a lot of people were thinking about 20. But when they see it, it's like the 4-minute mile. First time somebody does a 4-minute mile, it's like, oh, that can't be done. And then it got done. And now high school students do it. It's not even a big deal. The bar got raised. So larger organizations, I have a lot of appreciation for, because it raised the bar for me working at Vivint for so long. There was so many guys performing at a high level that if you wanted to compete at a high level, you had to get up there, and it pushed you. So you can go work at different organizations, which I respect. The right now, especially in the solar industry, there's so much opportunity. You can succeed anywhere. Like a lot of good places to succeed. But I respect the level of organization that Todd Peterson and Peterson's of the world built, that when people show up, they have a completely different experience. They are surrounded by more people operating at a higher level, bringing more energy and competitions all at once. So from competition platforms to incentives to your brand alone, branding and marketing is so underrated in our industry. People do not understand it. Why? Because people want to work for something that they feel a part of, that they feel like they're helping create, that they are building something more than just their people. And once you create and establish a band that people know, like, and trust, they want to bring more people into it because it feels like home, right? And they feel more about the brand than just the brand. So creating a brand that is reputable, it is recruitability. A reputable brand and a reputation allows people to come and feel safe because others have done it. Come and feel safe. They can see that they're staying, which means it's trustworthy. And so many people out there don't have that, and so for some of the smaller companies, nothing wrong with any of them, but they haven't built a big enough brand for people to say, oh, I could take a whole organization there, because there's enough other people who've had an experience that has proven it's okay. So all these different things, you've got to go create a unique experience and a unique brand and a unique company with unique departments that supply more support. And then once you know what your differentiators are, right? So if I want to talk about a sales model, I can do that. If I want to talk about our training, I can do that. If I want to talk about our competition platform, I can do that. If I want to talk about our ability to scale, because we have a nationwide partner that's the largest in the country that allows us to scale faster than everybody, I can pick one of 20 different things that I think differentiate us to recruit to. So the first thing is I know our vision and I know our value adds and I know what makes us better. So now that I know those things, now I'm going to utilize social media and I'm going to go get loud as shit about it. And I'm going to scream from the platform, we have something different. Here's what it is. And if that is it resonates with you, come here. You can trust our brand, you can trust us, and we have something that works. And so far too many people don't understand first. You have to know your vision, and it has to be clear, and you have to know how you're getting there and what differentiates you and what supplies value to people. And then you have to be willing to get loud and get all over and get exposure and so that's probably
That's
that's very,
no,
very long-winded answer, but it's the question of recruiting is
no, it's not
where
too
we
long,
find it.
brother. It is so crucial because it is so complicated to be able to, like you said earlier, to a lot of people will come in. They come in, like your friends. They see you getting your one big paycheck or your 5 big paychecks or your 10 big paychecks, whatever. I'm like, wow, I want to do that too now. I like Tyler. Tyler was kind of cool in the past. I want to go work with Tyler now. But then they don't have the structure outside of that, and they haven't built that. The smaller organizations haven't built that, or even put any effort towards building that. They don't think it's important, and then they can't realize why they get guys less and less and less production because there's nothing that they're shooting for.
Well, we have probably one of the biggest things we deal with from a recruiting standpoint in our industry, getting solar specific here, right? Is it's the constant discussion of commissions and red lines. And it's no different than the same discussions I had back in the security day working at Vivint, right?
Right.
At Vivint never paid the most commissions. They never paid the highest level of commission. But on average, they're earning more money, right? And it's because the bar was being raised and they were part of something so big. And there was so much energy and competition and hype. And, the people were doing it for more than just that.
Yeah.
And so Vivint didn't grow to be the largest sales organization and turn into a multi-billion-dollar company because they paid the most. Their people had the best experience. They had the best experience from a personal development standpoint. They had the best experience from a leadership standpoint. They had the best experience from a competition and fun standpoint. They overall were receiving an uncommon experience. So they stayed and they brought more people to it and they could trust it. And people would find that when they would leave that, they would always be offered more per deal in commission. But what they would find was all the things they lost couldn't be monetized. You couldn't compare it in a pay scale. You can't say how much this high quality training was worth. You can't say how many people you would retain because when they showed up, it felt more organized, structured. You can't say how many more people you'd recruit in the first place because the brand is more trusted and it has been built up as a reputation that people are like, I'm willing to even listen to you because you work there. They're unmonetizable things that people don't recognize. And when they focus on the one other thing, what they fail to recognize is if that's all you recruit based on, and if that's all you supply to people is just a bigger pay scale or more commission that you can break down and try to logically show people are going to make more money, you're missing all the intangibles. You're
I
missing
think
all the intangibles that people need to be satisfied over long periods of time and to feel like they have growth and personal development. And people are in it more than just for the money. But what happens is those things are what create a better environment, a better culture, a better experience, which then turns into more money. So
right.
anyways.
It's pretty clear. I mean, it's clear, but I'm glad that you someone that has done it multiple times over and over and over again can express that. And we haven't had somebody be able to say it on the show. So Tyler, I really, really appreciate you sharing that because that is the secrets. I mean, you literally just said the secret, right? Like I asked you, I was like, hey man, like I leverage my influence, credibility, and authority to get guys like you to tell me your secrets. That is the secret. It is, like I told you in the past, it's not anything different than anyone else has said. but it's how you actually are implementing it. You're getting it done. And look, bro, look where you're at. You sponsored Door Conference this year. Like, dude, you guys are big time.
It's been a fun year, man.
The results are there, dude. And I coach.
Long way to go.
Yeah.
lot more to come. So we're babies right now, man.
Yeah, of course. No, that makes sense. And there will be more stresses, and obviously the seasons of building the career and building the business will be there. So, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. All right, let me end here. Tyler, you're still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool, perfect. Let me end here, dude.
Pausing for phase 2.
Yeah, I know. Not yet. Let me end here. What is Tyler Bastian's end goal?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, man. I don't know if it was necessarily the end goal, but it goes back to like vision,
whatever that means to you right now.
And I think that changes over time, right? But it ties into everything we were just talking about. I was thinking, not that I was like crazy tight with him over the years, but I joined at a time they were in their infancy, in the apex days when Todd was more approachable, and at least developed a baseline relationship with him and a level of respect, and so from a professionally speaking, right now. What's my vision? Where do I want to go? What's my end game? I'm super grateful for somebody like a Todd Peterson who created an organization that impacted so many people's lives. And I'm looking around right now and I'm like, it's unbelievable. And this is another thing that people underestimate when they look at the power of an organization and the power of a large community coming together with one goal in mind, is the power of the network, right now, because of the places you've worked, Mikey, because of the places I've worked and the lengths of time we worked there at large organizations, right? People could say, well, yeah, you could have been working here and you could have made a little bit more commission per deal, and that would have added up over all your 400 accounts over this many years. You lost millions of dollars. I'm going to go, you don't understand that. You don't understand it. Because I got myself to a high level inside of an organization with that many people, thousands and thousands of people over the course of a 10-year period. Should have had 3,000 reps, but that shuffles through. So there's probably 10 or 20,000 people at some point in time when I worked there that saw my name because of what I was doing. So if you're going to work at a large organization and you're going to work hard enough to get yourself into the top 20% and get your name known, you are creating a network that will be with you for years because people respect that you were able to rise up inside of a community that large. So you can tap into that. It doesn't matter what happens to me tomorrow. Something could happen, and I've got a network of people who would reach out with opportunities for me like that. I don't have to ever wonder whether I'll be okay or I'll have an opportunity from a work standpoint. In addition to that, because I worked at those places for such a long period of time, that network is worth millions and millions of dollars, because when I get outwardly, loud on social media and I want to present something, more people are just willing to listen. Whether they agree with me or not is different, and that's okay. But more people are listening. And they listen because over time I developed a reputation, and I worked at a place with a large enough network that you got your name out there. By getting it out there, at Solar Cities and these larger organizations, like now you look at, because of what Todd Peterson did, you look at and I'll use some of the guys that worked there for long periods of time, though, the Casey Boz, the Jeff Mendez, a lot of those VPs that were there for a long time, and others down below. You know how many people that broke off, started businesses, leveraged their networks within that business to help come together in different ways and create more. I mean, the amount of millionaires that have been created out of that is second to no other organization. It's not even close. So as I look forward to the future, the landscape of solar is so great right now, and the longevity of the business, with some of the changes that have been made governmentally over the next 10 years, like we've got a runway. And, so from a professional standpoint, I want to create an organization like that, not because I want to be seen as somebody who created an organization like that, but because the value in creating one for other people, and that whole theory of like, how can you give back to as many people? Well, I never would have became who I am today if I didn't show up and have a really good experience. If I showed up to a company and had a poor experience, it wasn't going that great, it was just like so-so, and I didn't love it, and then I would have lost a brother and a sister in a car ride, I probably would have gone home in the middle of the summer and never showed back up. That would have been the end. But because I was at a great organization who had systems and processes that I trusted, who had built a brand that could be trusted, I plugged in, I had a good experience, I produced, I was paid for that, whether somebody else could have paid me or not, like it came in and it worked. And I always trusted it. And because I trusted it, I put forth best effort. And then when something hard happened, I was able to overcome it, keep going through a system. And then I had a leader who was great, right? Who came in and supported me in different ways. And I'm talking at multiple levels of leadership. I learned from all those people. I wouldn't have had that opportunity elsewhere. So my hope would be to create, I'm not trying to say create the next Vivint. I don't want to be the next Vivint. I want to be the next Vital. I want to be the next, who we are. I want to be totally unique. I want to be totally differentiated, but I want to supply a similar experience that large organizations like that have for people, where they show up and they feel 100% safe. They feel like they can work there as long as they want, and they know exactly that they're going to be taken care of, that they're going to be supported, they're going to be loved, they're going to be coached, they're going to get paid, they're not going to have problems, they don't have to worry about those things, and then they can stay as long as they want and have a good experience. And when the time is right to step on and move on to something else, we want to train them to do that too, And so through some of the investment opportunities we're providing in the different smart money series, trying to train people to be smart with their money early on, so they don't have to do it forever if they don't want to. But hopefully, as long as they choose to do it, it's an experience that impacts them forever. And by doing that, also, I'm smart enough to know that by creating something like that, that will forever continue to expand my network and put me in a position where I don't have to worry. So I'm already at a spot where I don't feel like, the need for worry. So I just want to build something as big as possible to help as many people as possible over time.
Dude, that is impressive. I have to say that is, I know you already know that. So, wow. Well done, Tyler. You're just getting started.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's going to be a good journey. Looking forward to it.
Let me rapid fire our last few things here and then we'll end. Is there any quotes you live by? Any quotes you have tattooed or all over your walls? Anything that you comes up all the time?
I don't have any quoted, tattoos. I've gotten a few in the last little while. My dad always had something, he would say, which is "it'll pass." Not that it's profound, not that it's his, but it will pass. And I think it's just something to live by and remember. It'll pass. If things are going amazing for you right now, and it just seems like it's at the height, and it's perfect, and it's beautiful, and it's all clicking, it's gonna pass. It's like right now we're having just the greatest sales month right now, man. Like we're crushing it. In February, it's not normal too, so it's amazing, and I'm excited, but it's gonna pass. It's gonna pass. We're gonna hit a lull. Something else is gonna happen. We're gonna have to deal with it. So not getting so emotionally high when those highs are there, and then knowing that, hey, some of the craziness that's gone on, in my life over the past year, from the weight of a new business to transitioning out of a relationship and learning all of those, different things that I've had to deal with, like it'll pass. So I like that phrase a lot, like trying to remember that it's like live in the moment. Don't wish everything away. It's going to pass anyways. Appreciate it for what it is right now. I think that's powerful, and try to live by that one.
Love that.
Tattoo. You asked about tattoos. I got a tattoo this year that stands for letting go and forgiveness and new beginnings, and so I think that's one I try to live by. I was willing to put it on my body, and I think that's just ever changing. I think it's ever changing. Anytime you live your life in a way where you take something personally and you can't let it go, that's going to hold you back. So I think that's something that I try to live by on a daily basis. Is what can I let go of? What am I hanging on to that's holding me back that I can let go of? And if I were to let go and just move on and not make it about me, I'm probably going to get to a better place quicker.
Awesome. What are books you're reading right now, or top 5 books?
I'm reading a book right now. Well, midway through, or, I've been reading it for 3 months, putting it off, and, made it through half chapters. I should have been done a long time ago. I'm reading one called Lighter right now, which is all just emotional management. A lot of that stuff over the last couple of years, man. I spent the beginning of my career just so many sales books and leadership books and psychology of selling. Love the Grant Cardone ones. Always love the 10X rule and Be Obsessed or Be Average. Like those things were, but I think I loved them because they spoke to my ego and they spoke to who I thought I was. So they made me feel good when I read them. I am the 10x. Yeah, I am the guy that goes puts 10x in, and I'm the guy that's been obsessed with this to get better at it. But as I transition out of some of that, like, hey, I compartmentalize too much. I was a little too much of that guy sometimes, and I've come out of that. It's been a lot more about emotional awareness. So ton of books on emotional awareness, on breaking down old belief patterns. Love a book. Probably one of the most impactful books I read over the last couple of years was called Stealing Fire. I'm not sure if you've ever read that one. That one's incredible. Write that one down, dude. Stealing Fire is unbelievable. I would recommend that to a lot of people. It's all about getting in flow state and breaking down patterns of old belief, and that's a really great one. But yeah, no, for me, it's been a lot of emotional awareness books and learning to become more in tune with myself so that I can, be more aware of how to help other people. So,
any good relationship books?
I mean, all of those ones, right? Like anything that's dealing with emotional awareness to me is a good relationship book, because as you become more emotionally aware, that's how you become aware of your patterns, and that's how you break change.
Sure.
And it's not how do I communicate with others, it's how do you change yourself. You've got patterns that are holding yourself back in relationships that you're not aware of, or you are aware of and you're not making the changes, and you're not putting the work in on them. So I think, yeah, any books to do with that, I would highly recommend. How to Change Your Mind, Joe Dispenza, a lot of those books. I don't know if you've read any of those ones. Joe Dispenza's got some really incredible stuff. Watch a lot of podcasts on that.
He's badass. He's badass, dude.
Mm-hmm.
He is outstanding individual.
Jay Shetty, How to Think Like a Monk. I've read a lot of those books, like I said, just on personal awareness and old belief patterns and where you're at now. The Four Agreements. I'm not sure if you've ever read that one. That's a phenomenal book.
Yeah.
Love those ones. So that's been more heavy on my playlist for the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's seasonal for you, right? It's important for you to get that. What was the number one sales book you said? Like if you had to pick one or two.
I mean, the one that kicked my whole career off was Old School Psychology of Selling, Brian Tracy. A lot of Brian Tracy, a lot of Zig Ziglar, more new school stuff. I on the sales side, I really, dug into the Grant Cardone stuff. That's more for motivational than anything, I would say. Just like, don't be a bitch, let's go. So those were probably
Psychology of Selling was a really good book. Was the first sales book I actually read.
Yeah, same
took me forever. I actually read it in Dallas at the Barnes and Nobles off 75 in Walnut near the corporate housing there, and I would go and get the book, and I'd leave my Solar City card in there, and I'd go back to the book, and that was like the only way I would read, because I would not read at the house because it was like a skate park in my house, and I had a halfway house basically. And so I had to find a routine. So I'd go to the Barnes and Nobles across the street. So I read
that over and over and over my first year, man. Got an audio tape, and I think I listened to that on the ride out to area every ride my whole rookie year. Like, I think that's one thing I would say too. Recommendation just on books, right? Like, it's great to go read 1 million books. Nothing wrong with it. You're going to educate yourself. You're going to have more perspectives. It's good. But I also think if you're trying to master a craft specific to who I want to learn how to sell, reading sales books by 30 different guys when you're new, I think it's going to overcomplicate it. I think you're going to get too much information. You're not going to figure out how to use it. And grabbing one that has got good content, it's been recommended, and just living, eating, and breathing that thing while exercising its principles and going back and then exercising, going back, putting it to trial and error, like honing in on it. And I would say that's Psychology of Selling is what I did that when I was early in my career.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and I totally agree with that. I'm a big proponent of repetition. I've read Pitch Anything 72 times.
Yep,
that is my favorite book. I was just in person with him at a fundraising on a how to raise funds. So I was at Oren Claff's, like him teaching how to raise money from family offices and VC, how to pitch VC offices and things like that. So that was really fun. Right on, brother. Well, cool. It's obviously been a pleasure. You dropped, I mean, literally I've got more notes than anybody I've ever even talked to. So I have to figure out how to go back, and I'm going to go back and listen to this again, because I've got so much more questions that I want to ask you. But if you had any final words for the Golden Door Award winners out there, what would it be? For the winners, for those who have already done it, or for those who are trying to get to it? The winners.
For the winners. I mean, number one, congrats, guys. you've reached like the peak of your personal selling like abilities. Not saying, I don't want to say of your abilities that you can't rise higher, right? But you're first in class.
Yeah.
You made it to the top 1%, and I think that's super impressive. And so, yeah, my piece of advice would be like, pat yourself on the back. You made a good job. Um, reflect, reflect on how you got there and the things that have really helped you get there, but also reflect on where you want to get to next. What things you did to get to the spot you're in now, they're not all the same things that are going to get you to the next spot. And it's easy to have an ego when you get into the top 1%. You feel like there's not very many people to learn from. Don't have an ego about you're already the best and that by continuing to do the exact same thing, that's what's going to lead you to the next best place in your career. Step back and recognize what you haven't done yet and figure out what those who are doing it in that next level are doing and go learn from them. Um, and don't be afraid to let go of a few of the things that got you to where you are now in order to get to the next spot.
I love that. Yeah, that's one of my goals is to take Golden Door Award winners and teach them how to become a double Golden Door Award winner. A lot of times I have to struggle with them because I'm like, dude, what got you to 130 installs is not going to get you to 260. We have to do something completely different. Like you basically have to throw everything out.